All right, so I guess we can get right into it. Super excited to talk about customer discovery today. Big thanks to Leah for joining us here to share some of her expertise. And a couple of super quick housekeeping items before we get in. We are recording the presentation, so don't feel like you have to take notes or anything. We will send that out for everyone afterwards. And then also, please do feel free to use the chat and the QA functions throughout the presentation. Definitely want to make this as fun and interactive as possible. And then just before I hand it off to Leah, the webinar is brought to you by LogRocket. One of the things that we're really focused on here is helping product teams build the best possible digital experiences for their users. And what we found is that digital experience monitoring solutions can be too noisy and not effective enough in pointing PMs towards the most impactful user experience issues. For example, product analytics are great for revealing directional trends, but sometimes they're a bit too reactive in nature. By the time you see something is going wrong, it's already too late and the business is suffering. Some teams will resort to technology like session replay to fill in some of those gaps, but that can still be problematic because it's time consuming to find the correct sessions to focus on, and nobody wants to spend time doing that. So that's why we're excited to announce LogRocket Galileo AI, which is our newest product. It combines the best of product analytics and session replay and uses AI to gain a human-like understanding of the most impactful user experience issues on your web and mobile applications. So we'll basically surface those issues to you and use our AI to create natural language descriptions of the most impactful issues, like the examples you see on the screen here. So maybe we would tell you that users are struggling to add an item to the cart, leading to XYZ decline in conversion rate. And so hopefully that sounds interesting. If anybody wants to check it out, we are going to share a couple links after the webinar, and we're giving out free swag packages to anyone who attends a demo or signs up for a free trial. So if you need some socks to top off your sock drawer, I'd highly recommend. All right, and then don't want to steal too much of Leah's thunder, but I will say that we have spent about a year working with her on the LogRocket product management blog, and she's put out a few really great articles, including one about customer discovery that was actually the foundation for the presentation that we're going to go through today. So I will leave it at that and pass it off to Leah.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. Great to see everyone. I could spend all day seeing people tell me where they're from. I don't know about you. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, I think everyone can see that okay. So I am Leah Campbell. I have been in product for a good amount of years now. I've done product-related jobs even prior to that. And I worked my way up through tech support, customer success, QA, project management. All those different roles have led me to where I am today, which is the director of product management at Clear Capital, which is in the mortgage industry. So super exciting stuff, developing software technology for people like realtors or lenders. So super exciting stuff. I'm very excited to be here today. I do content writing for LogRocket and also my own personal blogs. I can't recommend doing that enough, but that's for another topic. So I'll jump right in to the agenda. Again, we're trying to talk about customer discovery and the importance there. So what we'll be hitting is why customer discovery is even important. Why should we care at all? And how we kind of go about customer discovery, which is identifying the target customer and their needs, collecting that customer feedback. I'll give you some tips on gathering that feedback, analyzing it, and then using that feedback to refine and validate your product ideas. So super excited to get starting here. So big question, why do we care about customer discovery? Plainly, it's so we can develop good products on purpose. As opposed to what? On accident? Yeah. They say, some 95% of startups fail. I believe it's because those people aren't doing customer discovery. It's kind of easy to like not easy, but it's not impossible to luck into a good product idea and build a good product just starting off, especially if you yourself are the customer, you're experiencing that pain point, you know firsthand what solution is needed for a specific industry you're in. A lot of companies start this way. So you start with a good product idea, and then the rest is a guessing game. It's back of a napkin, it's very internal, like, wouldn't it be cool if? No, it wouldn't be cool. We need to develop good products on purpose so that it's repeatable, it's scalable, and we can maintain that good product growth and success. So we want to eliminate guessing altogether. Product development is not a guessing game. And the best way to eliminate this guessing and drive purposeful product development is by defining your target customer and what their needs are. So we want to define the target market we're going after. Needs and problems change as we jump from persona and market segment, right? The needs of a product owner are going to be different from the needs of a product director, for example, right? So we need to get focused and define what our target market is. Some of us have an idea of what the target market is, which is great. But we need to refine that and hone it and focus, probably starting small, which brings me to my next point. We don't want to boil the ocean or anything. We want to define and identify root problems. We can do that through customer discovery. Once we know who we're targeting, it's much easier to understand their world and the problems that they face. So root problems are what we need in order to define and develop the appropriate solution for multiple customers. So again, not a guessing game. We need to take steps in understanding the market and our customer and their problems so that we can develop good products on purpose. Oh, thanks, Jen. So great to see you. We did work together a long time ago, it feels, and yet yesterday at the same time. All right, so let's see. One of the first steps in customer discovery is identifying the target market and what their needs are. Do not start with a solution. You do not want to come to the table with a solution that you want to just validate off the bat. You want to start by backing up a little bit and trying to define what the problem is. Sure, you can have ideas of what you think the solution is, what kind of product ideas you're thinking about, and maybe even some general problem statements that you think are occurring in your market segment and where your customers are. That's great. Sometimes you're starting fresh, which is totally fine as well. But we want to have a general sense of a problem that we want to solve. And then through identifying that target market and by talking to those customers, we're going to refine what that problem statement is, and we're going to identify the pain points so we can actually find a solution that solves your customer's problem. So it helps connecting with a group of people that have a common problem. Everything that you build needs a powerful why to drive it. And that why can be tied directly to a root problem. There are tons of problems to solve, right? So you can start with problems in your industry. Some problems are related to company vision or OKRs. That's great if you have it. If not, no problem. Just have some general understanding of a problem that needs to be fixed. So how do you figure that out is that you talk to people. You talk to a lot of people, and shockingly, a lot of companies do not do this, right? It's very much an internal process, inward looking. Again, that kind of like, wouldn't it be cool if we built this? It's a lot of those kind of conversations. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that. Any sentence that starts with, wouldn't it be cool if, I'm immediately like, no, cut the cameras. We got to talk to someone else outside of this company that can help us determine what we actually need to build and what pain points actually exist. Because if you start with a solution first, you might not even be solving any problems. Or if you are solving a problem, it might not be one that's worth enough for a customer to pay their hard-earned money for, right? So we need to talk to customers, and there's a lot of discovery and learning in this process. As you talk to people, You'll start making connections and patterns, and those root problems will become extremely clear. And again, you should start small. You don't want to boil the ocean here. Um, Starting small leaves us room for expanding and making larger products successfully as we go, right? It's the agile way. We want to release small and test and get feedback constantly, so we're not going in the wrong direction and building something customers don't want. So ideally, yeah, maybe we want a super cool app that has a bunch of algorithms and a bunch of data and it solves cancer and it schedules your doctor's appointments. Great. That's like a great long-term vision. We need to start somewhere, and it needs to be small, and it needs to target a very specific user's needs. We got to start somewhere so we can start releasing, get feedback, and grow from there. All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes, right? Collecting customer feedback. There is a right way to do this. I'll get to that in a second. But how we collect customer feedback is typically through talking with customers, right? In the form of customer interviews, which just looks like, you and a customer sitting down and having a conversation with thoughtful, provoking questions. And I mean, the first question is like, where do I find these customers? Are they just like falling into my lap? Sometimes it's hard to find customers to talk to. Um, Sometimes you'll have connections through your company. You'll have actual customers to talk to already. Maybe you have an existing product that you're looking to improve upon, expand. That's great. Do not avoid existing customers. They are a great resource to use. And typically you can get information very easily from them and grow those relationships with them in a meaningful way. But otherwise, who is your target customer? That work you did previously can help determine like, okay, what are their habits? Where do they live? Are they on LinkedIn a lot? Do they have their own forum that was created in 2004 and they still use? Ask me how I know this. I work in an antiquated industry, right? Do they live in Reddit? Do they go on Twitter? There are so many, there's so many platforms online that you can use to connect with your customers, your target users, your prospects, or just people in the general sphere that you want to get feedback from. Sometimes the information is just there, which is great. You don't even have to ask any questions. Media, news articles, gosh, there is so much information if you just look for it. People are exchanging ideas all the time. People like sharing information and they like they like commiserating with each other over common pain points. That information is there. If you look for it, you don't even need to have a one-on-one conversation necessarily. So this information can help guide and provide you with direction and answers. And Christiane, I think that's a question. Let's see, when you start small and build incrementally, how do you solve for the larger considerations without slowing the progress? Yeah, I think this is where you would lean heavily on your engineering team, because there's always going to be things like, yeah, ideally in the future we would do XYZ, but we can't right now. We need a compelling root problem that we want to solve that's small enough that we can build something quickly and release it and start testing it with an idea like, yeah, eventually it'll get here. And we'll talk about refining the MVP in a bit, but yeah, it's working with the engineering team can be very helpful because they're more in the how, right? We're in the why, we're bringing the why, we're bringing the problems. Engineering and product come together for the what. Engineering owns the how, right? So it's like, it's our job to put that information out there and to collaborate with engineering and say like, hey, listen, this is coming up. Consider that in your architecture, right? Consider that in the planning, and you work together to kind of make sure you don't put yourself in a corner. Yep, exactly. All right. So sometimes it's hard to get customer feedback. Maybe people don't want to give you any. Maybe you have a hard time getting interviews lined up. They don't know who you are. They don't know what your company is. Maybe you're starting out super fresh. You don't have anything. How do you incentivize them to give you feedback? One, I think just general human psychology. People like to help. And I learned this a few years ago, which is like if you start with an incorrect statement, people love to correct you. And they'll give you so many good nuggets of information to correct you with. That's like, oh, thank you. Gosh, I was so stupid. Let's talk about this more. There are ways to engage people in ways where they feel like they're helping you. I mean, they are helping you, but you can rely on kind of human psychology in that way. Um, there are also ways if you already have an existing product or if you have a prototype, there's beta programs, things where I feel, inviting them to a very exclusive beta program can, I don't want to say fan an ego, but be complimentary. You have access to a product manager. You're getting white glove service. Your feedback is going to mold our product. Like that's exciting for a lot of people. So don't sleep on beta programs or prototype. Like walking them through prototypes and getting their feedback that way. People like to correct, people like to provide feedback. But again, sometimes you need to do a larger monetary investment, whether that's a discount or what have you. Especially matters who your target customer is. I had to do a research project involving college students. Yeah, go on Reddit. I have $25 gift card to Chipotle for whoever will give me an hour of their time. I had a plethora of people who were going to give me their time. It was not difficult. It did cost me money. It's knowing your audience, and sometimes you have to dig into your purse strings a little to get that feedback. Not always, but sometimes. So incentivization can go a long way. Lastly, document and record everything. I'm a very fast typer. I am like speeding on my keyboard when people are telling me information. I'm noting body language. I'm putting my own like intuition, my own comments in with what they're saying. That's great. Some people can't type fast like me. If you have a colleague who can take notes, or just better is recording it and then looking at the recording after the fact. I talked about body language. I want to bring that up again. I mean, what they say can, I mean, should be taken at face value, right? We can trust it. They could lie. They could not be sharing everything that they want to share purposefully or not. Body language is helpful. Facial expressions are helpful in kind of understanding what they're really trying to say. um, because yeah, I always write down any changes in body language or facial expressions that are strange to me or that stick out, or any kind of unconvincing statements they give. And sometimes if you catch them right away, you can poke into them and kind of try to get them to say what they're feeling in the moment. But otherwise, it's just very helpful feedback also. What they don't say is sometimes as important as what they do say. And note takers for virtual meetings, yeah, there's tons of like AI now. I can't even think of, I think Google does it too. Google Meet, Gong, whatever, can actually do transcripts for you. So there's that. And so yeah, we collecting feedback. And now I want to go over some tips, because this is probably some of the most important aspects of this. There
Yeah, there
is,
was one more question
yeah,
about from Corinne that I think makes sense to cover while we're on
yeah.
feedback collection. She asks,
Mhm.
what percentage of customer feedback collection should be through live interviews as compared to surveys or some other form?
It's the best you can do. I don't know if there's a specific percentage you need to hit. I love getting one-on-one interviews. I think it allows you to get more information, allows you to dig into certain answers and kind of flesh that out more and explore. And also you're creating that relationship with them that you would otherwise not have in a survey. Surveys are very important if you want a massive amount of feedback about something very specific. I would say conduct your interviews first, get an idea of what these people's dislikes are, what their pain points are, and then use that to inform your survey and send it out to a mass audience. Because you can't meet that many people one-on-one. I get that. And sometimes you can't for other reasons, but I would recommend trying to get at least, 5 or 10 direct interviews first, and then you can use that to create a nice survey to go toward a larger audience. Yeah, of course. All right. So tips on gathering feedback. I am very passionate about this. So when I first started product management, I read a book called The Mom Test. I don't know if any of you have heard it or read it. It's basically this guy's journey of starting his own business. And he built this product because he was getting feedback. I said, oh yeah, we love this product. We'll pay for it. He built it, he released it, no one bought it. It failed. Why? Um, he led with a product idea. He was asking yes or no questions and somewhat leading questions, and not investigating the root problem at all. So he was saying and the cause of why it's called the mom test is because if you lead with an idea, people don't want to hurt your feelings, right? It's like, how's my shirt look? You already bought it. Your mom's gonna say, great. I think, unless she's mommy dearest, which sorry. Um, but yeah, you do not want to lead with a product idea. You want to ask open questions that lead to the root problem. You do not want to assume, you do not want to lead. And it's unhelpful to ask yes or no questions. One, because it's like, oh, do you like your current solution? Yes. All right. Like we need to ask, what about your current solution solves this pain point you have? What other pain points is it not solving? We need to get down to actual information. And yes, you can ask a yes or no question and then ask why after. I still don't think that's the best way to go about it. I think asking yes or no question to start gets a person's brain operating in a lazier way than it would asking like a more stimulating information requesting way. Like we want to get those gears turning. We want them to think about the question and we want them to answer as honestly as possible. And you can avoid that or you can avoid getting, weak data lacking answers by not asking yes or no questions. We don't want to ask yes or no questions. We don't want to ask leading questions. And again, with a leading question, you're excited about this feature, right? No. Again, we don't want anything related to the product. Get the product out of there entirely, get your solutions, get your ideas out of there. We want to just know about this person. We want to know about their life. We want to know about their pains, their wins, their successes, what makes them feel good. That's what we're focusing on. And we want to be open-minded. So it you we don't want to bring sacred cows into these conversations. And what I mean is you should ask questions that put your product idea at risk. I believe this truthfully. Stephen King, in regards to writing, says the term kill your darlings, which means to cut scenes that don't do it for the consumer, but you love because you wrote. It's a very similar thing. You need to put your darling up to be sacrificed. And maybe you're hoping it doesn't get killed. But you need to know if your product has any standing with these customers. You need to ask questions that dig down to the real truth of what your product idea is based off of. Do they actually have these pain points or do they not? Are they that important or are they not? Be open-minded. You got to ask some tough questions and sometimes it puts your whole idea at risk and that's okay. So social, I do want to share a quick story about something that happened to me when I led with a product idea. So you can learn from my mistakes. When I was first in product, there was a really large company. They were like our enterprise company. And they said, we want we want email notifications for this specific feature. Okay. First of all, rule number one, don't let customers steer the ship. Again, we're trying to get products and features out of the conversation altogether. We need to get down to the root problem. I did not do that. I said, oh, okay, interesting idea. Makes sense. Let me go back and talk amongst other, let me talk it over. I met with other customers. I led with the product idea again. Hey, would this be helpful? Would this be valuable to you if we built a bunch of email notifications for this feature? Mom test, they were like, yeah, that'd be great. No problem. Yeah, I see that. That's valuable. So we built it, and it's the way within the first week, everyone asked for it to be disabled, including the big customer. We built the wrong feature because one, I let customers steer the ship, but two, I led with the product idea instead of figure out the actual problem. Yikes. Avoid that. Don't, sometimes it takes tripping over yourself. And it was a tiny little mistake, but it'll teach you to ask the better questions and to actually dig into the root problem. And then social media is your friend. I said this once, Reddit, LinkedIn, Twitter. There's so much data out there. There's so much firsthand experience shared all the time. I mentioned Stephen King earlier. I'm a writer in my free time. I have a novel out. I go into the writing subreddits and I lurk. I also participate because I like to read. But there's a plethora of information. I'm just sitting there surrounded by like-minded people who give feedback all the time. And they're commiserating with themselves, right? And I'm just kind of lurking like, good to know, good to know. You can do that all the time with like any industry. There's so much information out there. So social media is very much your friend. And meet in person. Wow. Zoom is so helpful. I I think it's the best thing. You can meet with so many people across all different time zones, much more than you'd ever be able to do in person. However, if you can, please try to have at least one meeting with one of your customers or prospects in person. Um, you do not know what their lives are really like until you see it. They're only sharing what they want to share. That's it. And based on what questions you ask. Um, as an example, if you're building a product, building a cool software, like, yeah, we're building this super cool software and it's gonna beat the competition. The other software companies are gonna be shaking in their boots and we're gonna win. And we go to that customer and we meet with them in person. We're like, show us your current solution. And we're conniving and like, we're gonna see our competition. We're gonna get a bunch of information. And they start pulling out paper and paper clips. What? They have a manual process? They're not even using a software? Gulp, that's different. That changes everything, right? We're thinking we're trying to come up against existing software. These people don't use any software at all. They're using a super antiquated process that changes our go-to-market strategy. That may change the complexity that we have in our software. Maybe our software is too complex. It's got too many bells and whistles. These people are used to writing on pieces of paper and faxing them. That's shocking. Would you have been able to find that out in a Zoom meeting? Maybe, if you ask the right questions. But gosh, it'll shock you. Sometimes meeting in person, you'll see things that you would not expect. If they use manual things and not software, why meeting in person? Maybe you had a connection with them through LinkedIn or something, right? Maybe they use some other product that is within your company. There could be a variety of reasons why you're meeting with them. Maybe they're interested in your software. That could be true. I've experienced that. People with manual processes calling in, looking to, modernize their solution. But even so, it's like sometimes your solution's too modern. It's too complex. That's important to know. So yeah, it's not a PM job to sell and convince. Well, it is and it isn't, I guess. It's the PM's job to make the product successful. I'll leave it at that. Sometimes that means, you got to train your sales staff. You have to provide people with value propositions. You have to make it successful. Sometimes by any means necessary, especially if you have a smaller company. It just really depends on your org. But I always view product management as like, it's my job if the product is successful or not at the end of the day. And if someone needs help or if I need to, I also think of it this way, I always find it very valuable to sit in on demos because I'm getting information directly from a prospect. It's like a free customer interview that I didn't have to set up. So there's that. Yeah, exactly, George. That's true too. All right. And then analyzing feedback. Yeah, demos are the best. I can't like support them enough. It's a great way to get information. All right, so analyzing this customer feedback. Wow. We can do this a number of ways. It's really up to you. These are some ways I found have worked for me when identifying the root problem and trying to prioritize and start establishing your roadmap. Affinity mapping is essentially collecting similar items together by problem, organizing that information, grouping large amounts of data together. This is helpful if you've done a ton of customer interviews. You got so many notes, you got so many recordings, you're like, what is going on? You can start grouping things together. For example, you can group things by like general technical concerns, or say a common thing that was brought up is like onboarding gets in the way of speedy ordering. All right, let's put all the feedback that was directed towards that one pain point statement. Let's bucket all the feedback that we have towards that. It helps us see where the biggest root problems are when we bucket things in this way. Highlighting and tagging can also help with affinity mapping. You can go through it, and word clouds too, right? You're trying to find like words that are used commonly, phrases that are used commonly, to just try to help you bucket all that information and organize it. And then this is really the most important thing. Once you have it all organized, synthesizing it. Because listen, are you going to send 20 pages of interviews to your CEO and be like, here's all this great data I got? No, you need to synthesize it, one, for yourself. It helps you reiterate in your own words, explain what you heard from these customers. It will help get to the bottom of what your customers were trying to convey to you, and it can help you share that information with stakeholders much easier, right? They want to get a summary, a general understanding of what you did and what information you collected, not some word cloud or recordings, right? So synthesizing is a very easy and distributable way to analyze that customer feedback. And then, how this all ties back into refining and validating your product idea. Again, with the goal of building good products on purpose. I think the affinity mapping is helpful in determining, what pain points to go after first, because you'll be able to see the most common ones. That's not always the one you're going to want to solve first. You have to take in other considerations, right? From the market, from technology limitations, from company vision. You're going to need to use all of that information in determining how your roadmap is prioritized. And so, yeah, you want to highlight all the feedback related to your product solution. That's great. Great way to start. And while you're doing that, I'm not trying to sound woo-woo here, but I do think you should focus on your feelings and follow your intuition. Because as some of you may know, like being in product, you are at the epicenter of everything. You have so much information coming at you from all different angles all the time. What's going on in the market? What's going on in technology? This executive wants this, sales is telling me this, customers are telling me that, support is telling me this, all the time, circulating. And so sometimes when you're meeting with customers or you're doing research, you'll have these moments of recognition that something is more important than maybe it would have been like caught by someone who's just giving a customer interview blind, right? It's like, okay, maybe you can't articulate exactly why something seems very important. And I know, again, this sounds a little woo-woo. Every product mentor I've ever had has talked about this. Some have called it like product DNA. Some have called it just, listen to your gut feeling. Don't ignore those things. They're especially helpful, if you're weighing two important problems to solve or two important features that come from that problem. Using your intuition and those like light bulb moments that happen when you're doing your interviews and conducting your research can be helpful in breaking a tie or trying to guide you in the right direction. So I just wanted to call that piece out. But yeah, this is the exciting part, right? You have the why now. You know you are the voice of the customer. You know what the customers want. We know the problems that they have. So it's our time to communicate that clearly and in a prioritized way to our engineering team or to our designers and collaborate them now, like, what are we going to build? And then it's up to them to say how we're going to build it. And as my last item on the slide, incorporate that feedback into your product plans. This is a never-ending process, right? It's not like you conduct all these interviews, you build your feature or your product, and you're like, that was great. All right, be successful. No, you need to keep collecting that feedback over and over and over again, right? Before development, after designs, getting prototype feedback, right? After development, after onboarding, on and on and on it goes. You never want to stop talking to your customers ever, right? ABC for sales, I say ABC for product, always be chatting. That's my philosophy. You should always be chatting to these people. And just as an aside, talking with customers and getting those relationships with them, wow, powerful for many reasons. You create a stronger relationship from that customer with the company, which is so valuable. But also you create lasting relationships for yourself. I still have customers, gosh, I met years ago, and we'll still text each other like about inside jokes, and we're just like buds. Those people can help you get jobs later, right? That's an aside, but I do want to call it out. And product is such a person first, really, at the end of the day, job and career. And I think it's so important to establish those good relationships. It's good for the company, it's good for yourself, it's good for everyone, good for the product. And so that kind of wraps me up. I just want to say all this ties together so that we build good products on purpose. And the best way to do that is to go directly to the source of all the pain, the people who are buying your products, and that is the customer. So we can go into Q&A now. And I see some questions in here. What do you think the role of UX research in this type of work? What can partnerships between product and UX look like? Yes, I am always very close to UX when doing my customer interviews. Sometimes I will even include design on the call, right? Like, hey, be on mute, be off camera maybe. We don't want to like intimidate the person we're interviewing. But I think it's very important to involve UX people, design. They are the ones who are going to be doing the designs. They need to hear that stuff firsthand. And if you can't get them into the interview, you need to confer with them right away and kind of do a brain dump of all the amazing things you heard and all the important, painful things that were brought up. You need to communicate that to your designer and UX team. So important. So yes, I would work very closely with UX and especially when getting feedback on UX designs. When you have a prototype available, let's go. Let's do another round. Let's get direct feedback about these designs. Very helpful. Oh, UX researchers. Yeah, some companies don't have UX researchers. If you have UX researchers, that's great. I think you can work with them and conduct a lot of the same interviews together. You can separate, you can what's the word, divide and conquer. I think that's helpful too. But I do think, involving design is also helpful. Oh, sorry, thank you. Thanks, Will. Which tools have you found useful when analyzing the feedback? In a lot of ways, I am just a normal gal, and I like to go through my notes, and I've done product for a long enough time now where I am bolding as I'm going. I know I'm tying them all together. I'm seeing how the patterns are emerging. Part of that too is that I went to school for history, right? That's a big piece of it, like finding patterns and things. And so I think some of it just gets honed over time, but a lot of tools I've seen get used, any kind of whiteboarding tools, a whiteboard in general, word clouds, those are just free online, anything like that. I would investigate other tools that you can use. There's tons of things depending on how you learn best. I would go with what resonates with you in your learning style. Let's see. So that kind of answered both of those questions. And at what point do you bring in prototypes? Once you have a good understanding of the problem you're trying to solve, and you're thinking of ways to alleviate that problem with product ideas and features, you're collaborating with engineering, you're collaborating with design. Design obviously needs to come first, but you can have meetings. I wouldn't call them refinement, I guess, at that time, but you can start collaborating on these things with a smaller, focused group and start honing this product idea and start getting prototypes done right away. We want to move quickly with the wireframes or prototypes and start getting feedback immediately as soon as possible so we can unlock design from doing their designs and then get that over to engineering. So as soon as possible, once you have your product idea honed from all the feedback you got. And I think I answered all the questions in the key. Oh, here we go. How do you keep your own bias from interfering with your synthesizing process? Yeah. I mean, you should be aware of that. Try to think if there's any kind of hot tips I can give you besides just being aware. I think it's always good if you can to work with another product person on it. At least try to like synthesize the data to them, try to go over it together. If you don't have a product person, I'll tell you something. It'll come out in your conversations with design or engineering. Your bias will eventually come out, hopefully, if you got smart people on your team that ask a lot of questions. That's been my experience anyway. If I'm ever making an assumption that's not backed by evidence, it's like, alert, alert. And a lot of this is, we're assuming a solution is going to solve a pain point, but the assumptions are not that, you can't assume that crazy. It's more like assuming a problem exists. That is where your bias can come in. And so people who you can call yourself out, like, can I tie this directly to a piece of feedback? Is it just one piece of feedback? Is it a one-off statement I got from someone and no one else said anything? Those things can be helpful just to be aware of. Yeah, of course. Oh, here we go. I am a PO for a team of contractors that rotate through different products. Does your advice differ when a product is not software itself, but a team capable of advising and building it? Interesting. So is the product is not software itself, but a team? Yeah. I still think that it stands where you're trying to solve a problem, right? You're selling like a service, I'm assuming, with your contracting team. I think that it still stands, whether it's software, whether it's an actual physical product, whether it's a service you're selling, like people need to have the product needs to either alleviate pain or prevent the pain. And it needs to be that extreme that a person's willing to pay money for it. So I still think it stands, right? The root problems are still what you're going to be looking for. Always be considering the problem. And then how big your prototype should be from your experience. I don't think it needs to be that crazy. I've had a range, from like basic wireframes that I drew on my iPad. I know, shocking. Sometimes you're in that position. Sometimes it could be more fleshed out, like in Figma. They could be operable, right? Figma allows you to do that. They could go from bare bones, as long as you're getting across the general workflow or the general product idea. It really kind of depends on what stage you're in. Do you want to get feedback about the designs in a way of like usability, or do you want feedback on the product or feature idea? Because that's once you've gotten to that point and you're ready to start wireframing, I think they both solve different, they both kind of provide solutions for different parts of the process. So yeah, you got to work with what you have. And if you don't have Figma or if you don't have a designer, sometimes that's you making wireframes. That's okay. Mobile, like 25 screens? Just depends. Just depends on your needs. Yeah. Does your mobile app have 25 screens? Does it need it? I mean, that could be some feedback that you need to get. How to do product discovery when a product has 0 users? Yeah, I kind of touched on that a little bit here and there, right? It's like with the mom test, you're still you need to talk to people. You have an idea maybe, or an understanding of what you're trying to do. You don't want to lead with product, oriented questions. You still want to talk to people and get their feedback on the pain points they're experiencing. You want to understand their world and what is going on in it and what kind of issues they're facing. So you can still do product discovery. You could do product discovery with nothing built at all. It's just a team of you. And you want to do a startup on the side. Great. Start talking to people. And again, I'll say start just lurking, because a lot of this information is out there. It's just wanting to be looked at, I swear. I think I answered all the questions that are open right now. If anyone has anything else, please pop it in. Otherwise, I really appreciate you guys. I had so much fun. I love customer discovery. I'm very passionate about it. So I'm free. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to come find me, if you want to talk more, if you have more questions, just reach out, okay?
Awesome. We'll appreciate all the insight you shared today, Leah. Like I said before, everyone stay tuned. We'll send out an email with a link to some of Leah's writing on the product management blog, as well as some links for more information about Galileo AI, if anybody's interested in checking that out and getting that free swag package. So yeah, that'll do it. Thanks again. And yeah, Leah, have a great day. And everyone else, thanks for joining us.
You too. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
See you guys. Bye.